welcome to Laces Dominant. My dad listens to this. I'm Juliet the Daughter.
And I'm Kevin the Tired Dad.
It's okay, we're gonna get through it. Dad's a little bit tired because someone stayed up a little too late watching Archer, but it's okay. And today, we are talking about, is it English Settlement or an English Settlement? I just want to be clear.
English.
English Settlement by the band XTC. And the reason we picked this one is because I gave Dad the prompt, what is a band, not a band, what is an album that was not well liked, but you will defend it to your dying day, like you have to pry this album out of my dad's cold, dead hands. And this was the one he picked. So Dad, what do we need to know about the band, the album, and why you made this choice?
Okay, first I made this choice because the 2004 Rolling Stone Record Guide gave it 2 out of 5 stars. 2 stars is defined as follows: fair to poor. Albums in the 2-star category either fall below the artist's established standard or are failures in and of themselves. The guide stated English Settlement was a search for something that never came, but they never really explained what was supposed to come. They also said that social protest was one of XTC's weaknesses and, quote,
disagree.
And, quote, the full world music didn't help, leave that to Peter Gabriel guys, unquote, which I guess means that XTC played everything themselves instead of hiring musicians from Asia or Africa for credibility.
That was my next question, if they were contemporaries of Genesis.
And so, as your mom would say, what the lima beans. Anyway.
God. Don't ask for the context for that, listeners. Anyway, keep going.
Anyway, Andrew John Partridge was born November 11th, 1953 in Malta. He grew up on a council estate, which is their version of public housing, in Swindon, Wiltshire, England. As a teen, he was a Beatles fan, but felt intimidated to learn guitar playing. He saw local guitarist Dave Gregory play at churches and fairs, and Andy thought, quote, one day I'll play guitar, but I didn't think I would be in the same band as this kid on the stage. Eventually, Andy did get a guitar and taught himself to play, but he realized he couldn't play along to records to learn. The only way he could play was to write his own songs because those he'd know how to play.
Mm-hmm.
He went to Swindon College but dropped out to form a band with the purpose of, what else? To meet girls. He started out with a band called Star Park, who then became the Helium Kids, which, yes, you spell kids with a Z. And eventually the lineup was Andy on guitar, fellow Swindonite Colin Moulding on bass, Terry Chambers on drums, and Barry Andrews on keyboards. Barry had answered an ad, went out with Andy for drinks, and the next thing he knew, he was in the band. They went for another name change. It was going to be Dukes of the Stratosphere, but that was too psychedelic. Allegedly, according to Wikipedia, so I'm not sure how accurate this is, XTC came from a Jimmy Durante quotation. That's it, I'm in ecstasy. Club owner Ian Reid became their manager. He lasted until 1982 when the band found out they were getting royally porked.
Oh, no.
When they had signed with Virgin Records, the 20-year contract worked out best for Ian Reid, then for Virgin, and not at all for XTC.
Oh, no.
In fact, they were only paid £25 a week each.
Tell me they got a lawyer.
Well, this all eventually led to lawsuits and counter-lawsuits and a settlement in 1989, but still the band got screwed. And to this day, there's still a court-enforced gag order preventing anyone from discussing details.
Holy shit.
Yep. Oh, by the way, it was an appearance on John Peel's BBC One radio show that got record labels interested in the band. Their debut, 3D EP, came out in October 1977, which was 3 songs. Their first full-length record, White Music, took only 2 weeks to record and was released in January 1978. John Leckie produced it. Andy wrote the bulk of the songs, with Colin contributing his own as well. Andy decided, if you wrote it, you should sing it. This Is Pop, Andy's manifesto about the band's music, and the hilarious and BBC band Statue of Liberty were released as singles that didn't chart. For their second album, they contacted Brian Eno to produce.
Oh, wow.
He said no. He thought they were good enough to produce it themselves. Virgin thought otherwise, and John Leckie produced again. Barry Andrews showed up with a bunch of songs, but Andy didn't feel they were right for the band. Still, Barry got 2 songs on the follow-up, Go To. Even so, he'd leave the band in December of '78. He went on to form the League of Gentlemen with Robert Fripp and then Shriekback, which is still going strong some 40 plus years later.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Partridge contacted guitarist Dave Gregory. Remember him?
Yeah.
Okay, good. For what Andy called a pretend audition because they already knew they wanted him. They also wanted Steve Lillywhite to produce their next album along with Hugh Padgham as engineer. These two were developing a sound technique called gated ambiance. What is gated ambiance, you may ask?
What is gated ambiance?
Well, you know that part in the Air Tonight by Phil Collins when the drums kick in?
Yeah.
That's gated ambiance.
Okay.
All right. So Steve and Hugh perfected their technique on Terry Chambers' drums with Drums and Wires and then the follow-up Black Sea. Now, Drums and Wires came out in August of '79, and they got a hit with Collins' song Making Plans for Nigel. They were also selling out shows. Andy and Colin both felt that XTC really started with Drums and Wires. It also became the band's best-known album. And then,
Troublish?
kind of, sort of, Virgin noticed that Colin's songs were doing better than Andy's. Plus, he fit more into the stereotypical look of a rock star.
Uh-oh.
This caused Andy to exert more authority over the group and, I think, to double down on his own songwriting. Black Sea came out in 1980 and became their highest charting album in the US, going all the way to number 41. From 1980 to '81, they toured Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the US as the opening act for The Police. Because Stuart Copeland was a big fan, and the Police eventually had Hugh Padgham produce Ghost in the Machine and Synchronicity.
Good taste to it.
Andy was stressing out big time with touring and wanted out. The band, management, and Virgin said no. His then wife, Marianne, found Andy's supply of Valium and flushed it away, telling him he didn't need it anymore.
Uh-oh.
And he said, okay, it was that simple, right? Except he'd been taking Valium every day since he was 12 years old.
Ah, shit.
And apparently kicking Valium is harder than kicking heroin.
Whoa, that's saying something.
But Andy and no one else knew at the time.
Wow.
So Andy decided for the next album, he wanted it to sound less geared to touring. So maybe they wouldn't have to tour because Drums and Wires and especially Black Sea, they tried to record it live in studio as much as they could so they could just play these songs on the road. But for this time around, he decided, I don't think so. So thus, the Pastoral English Settlement. And to quote Andy, pastoral to me means being more in touch with the country than the city, which I think we
hear
are.
it.
London gives me the willies, unquote. And all I could think of is Patrick Kennedy. That Castro, he gives me the heebie-jeebies. Anyway, on English Settlement, the songs were longer, arrangements were more intricate, and Dave Gregory started contributing keyboards. And Andy came up with the song the band will always be known for, Senses Working Overtime.
Oh, yeah.
It hit number 10 in the UK and became their highest charting single. There was going to be a tour, but Andy's health put a stop to that. He just couldn't do it anymore. He was still going through the Valium withdrawal and having like these panic attacks and stage fright.
That sucks.
So he told Virgin the band didn't want to play live anymore. So Virgin stopped promoting them.
Oh, no.
They still had them on the contract, though. Andy spent some time in 1982 convalescing. Meanwhile, Terry Chambers moved to Australia and started a family. He wanted to tour. He had to be persuaded to come back to Swindon to start rehearsals for the next album. After one session, he said the hell with it and moved back to Australia. And from that point on, XTC used session drummers for their albums. Meanwhile, Virgin put out a best of called Waxworks, some singles 1977 and 1982, and a companion album, Beeswax, which collected the B-sides. The studio bound version of XTC's first album, Mummer, came out in August of 1983. It didn't get great reviews, but contained the great song Love on a Farm Boy's Wages, a thinly veiled song about the band's financial state. There'd be more of those songs, like Earn Enough for Us. The band also released a Christmas song as The Three Wise Men called Thanks for Christmas, which is one of your mom's favoriteest Christmas songs ever. They also put out the album The Big Express in 1984. And it's like at this point, they're putting out these albums and they're not doing that great sales-wise, but they're always getting played on WBRU. They're playing at least one or two songs
Well,
from each of their
WBRU
albums.
doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, they did at the time.
Mm-hmm.
The band also did a one-off psychedelic project they called Dukes of the Stratosphere, which was one of the
throwback, yeah.
which was one of the names of band names they were considering when they first started. Their 1984 album 25 O'Clock sold better than The Big Express. Now it's 1986, and Virgin tells the band, "You guys are too British.
What?
Hire an American producer, or we will drop you."
What the hell?
They chose Todd Rundgren from the list of names they were given because he had produced one of Andy's favorite albums, The New York Dolls.
Oh, okay.
The band flew to upstate New York, and what could possibly go wrong?
Everything?
Irresistible force, need of a movable object.
Oh, no.
Todd and Andy butted heads a lot, but when the dust settled, the result was Skylarking, which for some reason everyone considers their best album. Dear God was the "It Wasn't Supposed to Be a Hit" B-side that became the hit in the United States.
Oh, yeah, that's a good song.
The band put out another Dukes album, Psionic Sunspot, in 1987, and guess what?
What?
It sold better than Skylarking.
Whoa.
And now I'm just going to try and go quickly. Oranges and Lemons came out in 1989, with The Mayor of Simpleton becoming their only Billboard Hot 100 single at number 72.
Oh.
And it contains Andy singing his deathless line, "Well, I don't know how to write a big hit song." None Such came out in 1992 with the almost hits The Ballad of Peter Pumpkinhead and Dear Madam Barnum. The band lost their virginity in 1994. Sorry, Virgin Records dropped them. The band decided, we're going to go on strike. We're not making music for you anymore. And Virgin just decided, what the hell with it. We're just going to drop them. But they put out the album Apple Venus Volume 1 in 1999 and Wasp Star Apple Venus Volume 2 in 2000, both on the Cooking Vinyl label. Dave Gregory left XTC during the recording of Volume 1. From 2002 to 2006, Andy put out a series of albums called Fuzzy Warbles. He wanted to beat bootleggers at their own game, and he said he made more money from those albums than he did from XTC's back catalog on Virgin.
Wow.
Colin Molden called it a day in 2008. He and Andy still own the XTC trademark. The two of them and Dave and Terry participated in the 2017 documentary XTC This Is Pop, which you can find on YouTube. It's informative, and it is downright hilarious. They've been eligible for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame since 2002, but I think they should be in.
I agree.
I don't think they will because they're too British.
Oh, bull.
Like the Jam. But you know what? I also thought Kate Bush would never get in. She got in, so you never know. Now, as for me, your Uncle Michael is responsible for getting me into XTC.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because I'd hear bits and pieces of drums and wires and Black Sea coming from his bedroom, and I'm wondering, what is this? Yeah, and it was, wow, this is really good. It's like the more I heard it, the more I liked, and I got the original vinyl copies of both those albums, and then English Settlement. And like I said, BRU would play a lot of XTC stuff.
You should send this episode to Uncle Michael and see what happens.
I should.
Do it.
And then eventually I got the 2001 Caroline CD remasters, and then they were remastered again in the mid to late 2010s, around 2016, on Andy's Ape label, which I think stands for Andy Partridge Enterprises. Yeah. Anyway, so I ordered English Settlement again the other day, the 2016 remaster, because I found it for like a brand new, never opened copy, dirt cheap on eBay.
Nice.
I'm such a sucker. Anyway, most of the songs for English Settlement were written in the summer of 1981, and the album was recorded in 6 weeks. The band and Hugh Padgham produced the album, and I want to say this was Hugh's first production credit rather than as just engineer. I could be wrong. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, they recorded 30 songs in total, and now the track list down to 15. And some of the other songs were used as B-sides, and they were also collected on their box set, Coat of Many Cupboards. As for the cover, it predicts the Uffington White Horse in Oxfordshire, which is not far from Swindon. It's a prehistoric hill figure formed from deep trenches filled with crushed white chalk. Oh. It dates back to anywhere from 1380 to 550 BC.
Whoa.
Yep. It, along with the band's name and album title, were embossed on the cover. but not in the US, which I did not know until now. So I did some pulling out and found out, hey, I have the original Virgin pressing from England.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Caroline CD master went for the US cover, just no horse, and you have to look really close to see that it says English Settlement because it's in green.
I mean, on YouTube, when you look up the album, they write XTC English Settlement in white font on the bottom
Mm-hmm.
because you can't see the embossment at all. Like, you really have to stare and squint.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I still have the vinyl because, if anything, I can read the calligraphed lyrics because they're in the CD version, but they are ridiculously small. Now, English Settlement was released February 12th, 1982. Get this, both as a double and a single record.
Huh?
That's right. 5 songs were lopped off for some reason.
Oh, that's why there was debate about 10 or 15 tracks. Okay.
Yeah. So it was on Billboard's 200 album chart for 20 weeks and reached number 46. And at the time, Rolling Stone magazine gave it 3 stars, but they had also reviewed the 10-song version. So does that even count? Because they only had 2/3 of the album. So I say, nope.
I say doesn't count either.
Nope. So let's jump into the songs.
All right. First track, Runaways. Now, that you answered my question earlier, because the first thing I thought when I listened to this was, were these guys at the same time as Genesis?
Yeah.
Because that everything made sense once I found out, yes. That was an awesome opening with just the acoustic guitar crescendoing and the vocals singing with an echo. Then the drums kicked in and I was thrown off, but then I got used to them. And the distortion on the lead vocals is balanced out by the other backup singers and the call and response they seem to engage in. And then we get that random piano out of nowhere with a crystal clear sound.
Mm-hmm.
As for the story, I don't blame the kid for running away. They're in bed hungry, Mummy is chasing Daddy with a knife, and Daddy hits the kid in the face. Now that the kid's up and run, the parents are apologetic, and you can hear them as they whisper, please come home, over and over and over, like the kid can't get them out of their head. This opening track took me completely by surprise, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is written by Colin. Yeah, kids run away from home, and someone, a family member or a neighbor, is trying to convince them to come back home. Even though Dad hit the kid, but he's sorry now. Mom's chasing Dad with a knife. There were nights the kid heard screaming while in bed and slumbered on without being fed. And, is it any wonder why the kid took off? I get what Colin's trying to do, calling attention to runaways, but he doesn't give the kid any good reasons to come back home other than everyone's sorry, which people say, oh, I'm so sorry, it'll never happen again. And
yeah,
then it
exactly.
happens again.
But that's probably That's realistic.
Yeah, so I kind of have to agree with Rolling Stone on this one with the social issue thing. I mean,
maybe it's also pointing out how, they're like, oh, please come home, we'll never do it again. But I think if you listen hard enough, you can hear the undercurrent of they are going to do it again, kid, don't come back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think social issue-wise, this song isn't getting the job completely done. I mean, it's definitely calling attention to the problem, though.
Yeah.
And musically, this was definitely different from the band. Keyboards made a comeback, like you said, with that piano, which just is like, the solo is just so simple, but it just really stands out. So the semi-acoustic electric guitars that are being strummed, and the percussion is just relentless. Just a hi-hat and possibly a well-mic'd bass drum for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Next track, Ball and Chain. Save us from the ball and chain. I really like that opening because it reminded me of Shape of Things by the Yardbirds,
Mm-hmm.
with how the guitar is strummed. I see this song as being about gentrification, residents being kicked out as buildings are torn down to put up a high-rise, or, looking on an individual level, the crushing of the memories reminds me of how people take old New England homes and absolutely modernize the hell out of them on the inside, thereby ruining the old beauty. And by God, does it rock. People should use this song when protesting demolition of property. The chorus is easy enough to chant. I can't complain about the key change or the fade out. What an awesome song.
Mm-hmm. This was also written by Colin about the redevelopment of Swindon Town Center. He cited the 1978 demolition of a Baptist tabernacle in favor of a car park, as an example. So he sings from the building's points of view. Save us from the ball and chain, the diggers, and the towering cranes. Now, here in Providence, we saved our old buildings back in the 1970s when other cities were tearing down the old and putting up to new for urban renewal.
And then Brown University moved in.
And then why did we do that?
Yep.
You know why we saved all our old buildings?
Oh, why, Dad?
Because Providence was broke at the time, so there wasn't any money to tear down anything. And then eventually all the other cities looked at Providence and said, oh yeah, I guess we should have saved our stuff. Musically, it's happy and catchy, and if you can resist singing along to the chorus, you are made of stern stuff. And also, Andy said that they based this on the Beatles song Getting Better from Sgt. Pepper, which
Mm,
never struck me until I read it on Wikipedia. Then I played that song, and holy mental head slap. Well played, gentlemen. Well played.
next track. Senses working overtime. The opening plucking of the guitar strings sound like when violinists pluck their strings for pizzicato.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, since this song is about sensory overload, it's not supposed to make sense. When your senses are overwhelmed or have been overloaded, nothing makes sense. But we all know what he means. He's able to sort of process the world and sort of distinguish between good and bad, but he's trying to make sense of it all, and his senses are trying their best. And the opening vocals are weird, but when the chorus kicks in with the drums and the title hook, oh man, does it get into you. And then we're rewarded with some soft vocals and sounds of nature for making it through. What an awesome song. And I definitely hear the influence from Manfred Mann with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That's okay. Yeah, at least you know how to count backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was written by Andy, who based the song on Manfred Mann's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Which I can hear.
Yep. He goes into a lot of detail about how he created the song, but the Cliff Notes version is counting as catchy in a song. He would reverse the Manfred's order. But what do people have 5 of, he was wondering. And then he realized...
Senses!
Yeah! So verse-wise, yeah, it's someone who's becoming very aware of the world around them, using all 5 senses, and they can't stop taking in all this information.
Sensory overload, yeah.
Yep. The song starts off quietly, and then the band comes charging in and does not let up. This is their catchiest song and possibly their best. Anyway, it's the one they will always be known for, and he thought it was Dear God. No. Pop-Tart Mandy Moore did the cover in 2003.
Pop-Tart?
Yep.
Oh, is that what you call her? Okay.
Yeah, you know,
Pop-Tart,
the
yeah.
girly type singers, whatever. Britney,
Paula,
Madonna, so on and
you
so
name
forth.
it. Anyway.
Yep. Anyway, Pop-Tart Mandy Moore did the cover in 2003, and YouTuber at Carter's Custom Rods summed it up nicely. I wish I had only 4 senses after hearing this.
Oh.
I sat through and listened to the whole thing, and I did not send it to you.
Yes, I know.
Because I wanted to spare you.
Well, now I kind of want to look it up.
It was awful.
You know what? I'll probably just listen to like the first 30 seconds to get the gist of it, and then after it, I'll be like, okay.
If you can make it through the first 30 seconds, you are made of strong stuff.
Mandy Moore, I love you and other stuff, but it sounds like you didn't do a good job with this one. All right, next track. Jason and the Argonauts, or as they say, Argonauts. Okay, this song is just a bunch of nonsense, and I love it. It doesn't really reference the original myth of Jason and the Argonauts except for the title. One of my favorite parts is how they sing the title, too. There's a lot of fast-paced lyrics, maybe to convey how fast things are moving, but he doesn't need the golden fleece as he stares in wonder at the world. And, you know, just the music here with the guitars having call and response and resonant strings, it's all bonkers, and it shouldn't work, but layered on top of one another, it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Andy wrote this about being on tour with the band and all the sights he saw, the good, the bad, the weird.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't come back from his travels with the golden fleece like Jason, but he has stories to last a lifetime. And musically, this song is expansive. I mean, if you listen to it on headphones, my God. Andy said that with English Settlement, it was the first time the picture became multicolored and widescreen. Before that, it had been television-sized format and rather black and white. And you can really hear it on this song, especially with like Terry working the ride cymbals, just like bouncing back and forth between the left and right channels. And I will admit, as much as I love this song, the instrumental break in the middle is just a tad too long. Even Andy thought so. He went back and listened to it, and he's like, yeah, could have cut this down a little more. And he even said that about a couple of other songs.
Next track. No thugs in our house. A married couple finds out their son is a white supremacist and is committing hate crimes against Asians. The parents are all, what? Not our boy. But he's got tattoos and pamphlets and a badge. Put 2 and 2 together and you get, officer, it's this one right here. But it seems like he comes from a home that's neglectful one day and abusive the next, but the parents are like, no thugs in our house. First song I didn't enjoy as much as the others. Like, it's a great story that makes a good point about how white supremacists are made, But the music, while still kicking ass, didn't kick as much ass for me. But then by the end, it was starting to catch on for me, just not as much, and it took longer to sink in.
Well, I think Graham kicked enough asses to make up for the band note. Anyway, this started side two. Little Graham's been busy and not in a good way. A policeman shows up at the house, spoiling Graham's parents' breakfast with reports of Asians who have been so badly kicked. The policeman has Graham's wallet, which Graham must have dropped after drinking too much beer, and the parents are in denial.
Yep.
They made Graham promise them he'd be a good boy. And on top of that, the father is a judge who knows exactly what the job of judging is all about, so it couldn't possibly be his son.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no thugs in their house. And where is Graham? He's sleeping, dreaming of a world where he could do just what he wanted to do.
Ugh.
Musically, this is based on Eddie Cochran's Summertime Blues, which I vaguely hear that, and I'm sorry I didn't send you that song. I should have.
I'm sorry.
Other than that, this song is very in your face, and Andy's vocals are pure rage, like the rage of denial. And Andy said, if you wanted to describe his voice, it was like if a walrus and Buddy Holly had mated.
Oh, I'd have to go back and listen to it.
Yeah. Now, I have an elaborate 45 version. It's the XTC theater that opens up containing a kitchen set and cutouts with the insect-headed worker wife, the dad, and the policeman. Graham is shown in bed from the back under a Union Jack blanket center stage above the kitchen. The 45 itself has a 33 RPM spindle hole, all the better to show the garden scene in the neighboring house on the 45 label.
Which you'll see in a video later if you follow me on Instagram.
And if you behave.
Next track, Yacht Dance. Oh, that opening was unsettling with the drums sounding like a spoon banging a pan. But then we get into sea shanty territory with the guitar, so this song would have been all the rage during COVID. Remember when sea shanties were popular on TikTok? And you couldn't figure out why?
Yeah.
And then the music sounded reminiscent of the Pirates of the Caribbean theme, which if you could hear it if you go back and listen.
Okay.
And then they sing about the olden days of boats and how they'll dance in their yacht, and that's kind of it. Pleasant and had me swaying, but didn't kick ass, so now I'm worried.
Well, this segues from No Thugs in the House, and it is kind of a jarring. So we go from one of the angriest songs on English Settlement to, I'm going to say it, one of the prettiest. It's easily the most pastoral song on English Settlement and also the most acoustic. And I always looked at it as like, not just like boats, but kind of a metaphor for like two lovers have risen above it all. They're dancing like tiny boats with cotton sails upon the tops of the sea, skimming across the surface. There's no need to look back at anything at all. Nothing can bother them. And they're just very happy. And I think the music conveys that. The whole song does. It's just, for me, it's just perfect. It's one of my favorite songs on here. Oh, by the way, this song has absolutely nothing to do with yacht rock.
Oh, no, definitely not. Next track. All of a sudden, it's too late. At first, I thought this was a protest song about how humans have treated the planet, but it's about the fleetingness of life. The lyric that resonated a little too hard was, "Life's like a firework. You're only lit once, and you must stand and radiate correctly," which, ouch, that's something you don't want to hear as a burnt-out former gifted kid. But this song does what it's supposed to do. Makes you stop and process the life that's fleeting, and gives some good life advice, especially about love with how it's a way you have to give. Song that expresses the message well, but might not be what you want to hear if you're in a particular mood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Andy came up with the music first, which he thought sounded like no hope. So he came up with what he thought was a pessimistic song, and he even thought it was kind of preachy. But he was hoping that in laying out the negatives, the listener would think about the positive side. Plus, he thought it was too long. I've always looked at the song as being about the end of a relationship. The cupboard's bare, heaven's not there, the sun's gone cold, we're more than old, and we've lost love. And then there's that line, love's not a product you can hoard or pack a suitcase with. It's more a way you have to give. And so that's where I'm coming from. I mean, I can definitely see, Andy's point of view and your point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I won't fight them. Plus, I always thought they were intentionally following the perfect romance of Yacht Dance, with the boats have crashed on the rocks of love because it's over all of a sudden. It's just too late. Now, side 3.
Next track, Melt the Guns. Not the opening I expected. The guitar sounds happy, and then we have the laughing of hyenas with some musical hiccups. Listening to this song is interesting because I'm reading Salman Rushdie's memoir, Knife, about when he was stabbed in 2022. And he writes in his book about how there are no such things as bad knives, only bad people. And with the gun argument, there's no such thing as there are no bad guns, only bad people. Why? Because think about it. A knife has multiple purposes. It can be used to cut a slice of cake, or to carve wood, or open packages, or in an emergency, you can use a Swiss Army knife. A gun has only one purpose, to destroy, and you sure as shit can't use it to cut a cake or to save someone's life in an emergency. I think the best lyric is the media being like Nero and fiddling away while watching the world burn. It feels like that as we watch democracy die in real time. Anyway, another good song that makes a good point with a little tongue-in-cheekiness to it, but we really could have done without the rock vocal scatting at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely the band's anti-gun song. And they get very specific about to whom this song is directed. Quote, I'm speaking to the Justice League of America, the US of A, hey, you, yes, you in particular. So, me being me, I did some research. Now, per US News and World Report, the US comes in at number 4 for gun-related homicides and suicides. Colombia, Mexico, and at number 1, Brazil beat us out.
Jeez.
However, per the Rockefeller Institute, we are definitely number 1 when it comes to mass shootings.
Oh yeah, I know that. Everyone does.
From 2000 to 2022, there were 109 in the United States. However, there was a combined total of 35 public mass shootings in 35 other economically and politically comparative countries. France came in at number 2 with 6.
Just think about that.
Plus, the U.S. has the most firearms in civilian hands at 393 million, which is more than the population of the United States. India came in at number 2 with 71 million. So you can kind of see why XTC singled out the U.S.
Yeah.
And this was back in 1982.
Yep.
Anyway, as for the music, is it almost too happy considering the subject matter?
It's like, well, maybe it's happy because they're melting them. It's like, yay, we're melting the guns.
Okay, it's definitely catchy, and regardless of your viewpoint on guns, that chorus cannot be denied. It dares you not to sing along with it.
Yep. Next track, Leisure. I sent this song to Mike, and I was like, well, this song aged well. And he goes, it's the Gen Z anthem. Sometimes it does feel like I work at a screen all day, only to come home and sit in front of another screen. And we're too burnt out for even proper self-care, so we just lay there like a slug. And then you search for another job. But to quote Charlie Kelly, why don't I just strap on my helmet and squeeze down into a job cannon and fire off into Jobland where jobs grow on jobbies? And we've no energy to exercise, and we're just one big blah. Because we're so beaten down by life and how the system is rigged. Again, makes his point perfectly, but if you're depressed, go listen to something else. Don't listen to this.
That's an interesting point of view. Andy's been replaced by a microchip at whatever his job was, so he is currently unemployed. So he spends all day playing TV games, and he's drowning in leisure. Too much free time and nothing to do. And he is getting lazy.
Oh, how lazy?
I'm glad you asked how lazy. He cannot even finish singing the last word in the last line to the song to make it rhyme to the previous line.
He's tired.
Yeah. So the line should be, lazy bones looking through the sun. How'd you expect to find your day's work done? He can't even be bothered to sing the word done. It just ends on work.
That's interesting because you see this about laziness and I see this about burnout because we're just so beaten down.
And the music matches, it's, no pun intended, leisurely paced to the point that the playing is going to get sloppy, but it doesn't. They keep it together. As for Andy's sax solo, on the other hand, yeah, that sounds like someone who didn't bother taking lessons.
Nope.
Even though he does have all this free time from being unemployed.
Next track. It's nearly Africa. I think what I liked most about this song is the horns and drums. And I think they also use a marimba at one point. And then the horns don't sound too poppy, but rich with the sound quality. And that guy is good at spitting those lyrics so fast. It takes a while for the groove to kick in with me for this one, but I can tell you one thing. And I don't know if I agree with the statement now, but I was in my mind, I was like, this is better than that Toto song.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is the only song where I've never had any idea what it's about. So, interwebs to the rescue, specifically the XTC fan website, chalkhills.org. To quote Andy, the body of the song was written in 1975. I never thought about finishing it till 1981. The original song was called It's Primitive Now. It was a celebration of all things primitive, of how we should slow down and appreciate being basically animals, in the good sense of the word. Like when he always comes up with that line, shake your bag of bones,
Mm-hmm.
that's basically dancing because we are just all bags of bones. So.
With meat zapped by electricity.
Oh, okay.
The skeleton's not the scary part. It's the electric meat.
Oh, electric meat.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good name for a band.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for electric meat. Anyway.
And so he says, how we should realize that we're really primitive and find the joy in that rather than racing onwards through technology and losing our realness. And I read that and thought, okay, these lyrics make absolute sense now. Musically, I guess they were going for an African music vibe, percussive as all get out, and yeah, very catchy. And they played all the music themselves.
Mm-hmm. Next track, Knuckle Down. Oh, those descending chords are great. And they build an intensity with the yell, and then it gets mellow. Message of the song is simple. Love everyone regardless of their skin color, because it's really stupid if you don't, and life is too short to be stupid. And they acknowledge the message can be corny, but it's not corny if you feel it sincerely. And I think by knuckles, he means stop balling your hands into fists or take those brass knuckles off. Vocally cringed with how he sang the word boy. More lovey-dovey protest song, but they won't mind if I call it that. But I was like, well, is it... But even now, I'm still struggling with it. I'm like, is it too saccharine and sweet, almost? Like, what do you think, Dad? You get what I mean?
Well, if you want saccharine sweet and Can't We Get Along, Ebony and Ivory by Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder.
Haven't heard that one yet.
Oh, okay.
We'll probably get to it one day.
Well, if you ever pick the Tug of War CD, we'll get to it, and it will just set your teeth on edge.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is their Can't We All Just Get Along song. And they want us to work hard at it. They want us to knuckle down and get the job done. But they also want us to put our knuckles down as like fists, like to stop fighting. As they say, put aside the hoodoo and some of the voodoo about people being different. They're not so different. And musically, the band keeps it simple. They could have played this one live, no problems at all. And Terry Chambers is just killing it on the hi-hat. And there's almost kind of like, they definitely get the pastoral part, especially when he's singing about running through the fields and blowing on the horn till Jericho yields. I think the music matches that sentiment perfectly.
Next track, Fly on the Wall. The idea of death... Oh, did you catch it?
It was a pretend one, so yes, I did.
The idea of death being a fly on the wall is a fascinating one, and one I haven't heard before. It also used the same guitar distortion for the fly's buzzing that the Cramps did for Human Fly. And hear me out. This could have been interesting. At first, when I heard the guys talking in the studio, I thought, oh my god, they're doing this. We're going to be a fly on the wall for the recording sessions and just hear it from a distance, and that's all the track's going to be. But this is so matter of fact. We all live and die, and it's the bit in the middle that doesn't count, which that is dark. And death sees it all, and death knows. But when we're alive, it's so small and insignificant, it doesn't matter. Which is kind of horrifying, unsettling. Very interesting way they make you think about this topic.
It's a very interesting viewpoint because I came up with something completely different.
Oh, okay, well, let's hear it.
This started side 4, was written by Colin. I always thought was the fly on the wall sees everything and knows everything about you. It's like the way the world is now. There are cameras everywhere. You may not see them all, but they're there watching you.
But it also works for the death, what I talked about earlier with death, because the fly's lifespan is shorter than ours.
And I think Colin predicted today's society perfectly. There's no privacy, as they like to say, at all. To me, this is like a sequel to the Drums and Wires song Reel by Reel, which I hope I sent you.
Yes, I think you did.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
It's like 1984 set to music. And to me, it's like Fly on the Wall takes the surveillance further because I see the mother beating the babe. I see the money that you've saved. I know everything. And I think musically, this could have come right off of Drums and Wires. And Andy's going to hate me for saying this, but Fly on the Wall is the punkest song on here.
Next track, Down in the Cockpit. That burst of sound at the beginning jolted me upright, and I like the whoa, whoa, whoas. Also, I thought that was a Shakespeare reference with the milk of human kindness. Best lyric is, man acting like a farmer, and he's treated the woman like a poor cow. This whole thing reminds me of an interview Peter O'Toole gave with Dick Cavett, which you can find on YouTube in full, about how he was all for women's liberation, but he thought the movement needed to be careful not to fall in the same pitfalls that men did once they found themselves in positions of power. And I wonder if that line of girl have the brain to act like the weaker sex is talking about the survival techniques a lot of women had to use to stay alive in the past, and some of them still do now, like Emperor Claudius pretending to be the stammering fool so he can live while everyone else around him is murdered. Yes, I'm rewatching a Claudius right now.
Oh, nice. Where'd you find it?
I bought it on Amazon on DVD.
Really?
Yeah, I want to buy it. I watch it annually every year when it's, July for Julius
And Juliet.
and August for Augustus.
I would have let you borrow.
Well, I wanted my own copy. I figure I'm going to move out, at some point one day. I mean, I'm in the apartment above, but, I might go somewhere else if I get married or something. So it's like,
true.
I want my own DVDs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
If you get married someday, still have a starter apartment.
Yeah.
Same. Okay. So I always kind of looked at that line that you said about was it girl have the brain to act just like the weaker sex?
Yes.
Yeah, I always kind of looked at it as like they're just lying in wait, and then their time is gonna come.
Yeah, they're waiting until they have the freedom to show how smart they are.
And this is when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So man needs the woman to pull him out of the cockpit. And all these years I thought, well, like a cockpit on the plane. And then I looked up the definition of cockpit, and well, that's what the roosters fight in as well.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, that makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was the same thing. And they even mentioned it in the song about what Peter O'Toole said about, you got to be careful not to fall back into
the traps that men fell in when they were in power.
But I wonder if the same thing would happen, though, because I don't think it's a man versus woman thing. I think it's just human nature in general.
Well, I also think it could because of how the system was designed. Like, the system was designed by a patriarchy. And if you're not aware of the pitfalls that, were accidental, but also, like, pitfalls that were designed on purpose so no one else could succeed in the system, you've got to be aware. But also, one other thing with cockpit that I thought of, and I'm not saying this to make, like, a sexual haha funny joke, but it's like, if you just look at the whole cockpit part and you just saw the first word, you could also think about keeping women on their knees in subservience.
Hadn't thought of that.
Force them to, like, there's multiple meanings you could look at with this one. And again, I'm not saying that as to be like, haha, sex joke, but also just the context
I can see that.
Oh, but also, I'm sorry, what was the song where we were talking about privacy? Was that down in the cockpit?
Fly on the Wall.
Well, I wanted to make a point about that really quick because I wanted to say this, but I forgot. Bell Hooks wrote that our society, we do value privacy, but nowadays we conflate privacy with secrecy, and the two are very, very different.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Yeah, anyway, but back to this.
Okay, so down in the cockpit, this is, to me, their ska song. Kind of, sort of. It's still very catchy.
Next track, English Roundabout.
Oh, boy.
Okay, did you watch the clip I sent you?
Oh, yeah, that was hysterical.
You won't be surprised that there's a family story. But it cut out
Oh, that guy was a trip.
Oh, Giles Brandreth, I've shown the full episode before, and someone made a point with his family. They look at him and they said, it's not so much a family tree, is it, as a family fucking forest. But anyway, that was interesting history to learn about, the French and the English and how roundabouts arrived in the UK. Anyway, given our frustrations with the roundabout on Massasoit Ave, this song is very relatable. People don't know how to drive. Everyone is shouting and cursing. There's traffic because no one knows how to navigate this thing. And everyone thinks they're gonna die on this thing. And the music goes around and round in circles in a more amusing way than roundabouts ever will. The rounds that they sing, they even sound like cars zooming about with how they sing it, which I thought was cool. A song that's too relatable and makes me pissed that they put that stupid roundabout there when we didn't need it. Safer my ass.
This is written by Colin, and people thought he was writing about a specific roundabout in Swindon, but he was not. It was just about the general mayhem of just trying to drive through traffic without losing your mind, and everyone else is going nuts, and he's had enough, and he just wants to be let off of this English roundabout. Kind of like European Vacation. Look, kids, it's Big Ben. Look, kids, it's Big Ben. And they're just going around and around, and they cannot get out of it.
I will say, when Tyler and I were in London, we were walking all over the city. We didn't drive, so we didn't see roundabouts there. But when we went to stay with Emily and Sam, in Sunningdale, near the Ascot, Westminster area, there were some roundabouts, but, it was just like, we were talking to them, so I didn't pay attention to any signage differences or, driving on the left-hand side of the road, how that works with merging, but, we lived.
Mm-hmm.
I think, they're used to it a lot more than we are because, I don't know, it feels like, I'm going to reference the Mike Nichols Elaine May sketch here. We'd like to say a few words about roundabouts this evening. They're coming back, and we don't want them.
Yes.
And here's what I want to know. If there is somebody who listens to this, if you work for DOT, or if you have worked with DOT, or if you just have worked in construction, or with roadways in any capacity, send me whatever academic text you have, whatever plans you have, saying that roundabouts are safer. Because I have heard that argument, but I want to see the evidence to back it up. So if you're listening and you have some evidence that you can send my way, link me to all the articles you can find. I will read them because I want to know what the argument is, because I will tell you it doesn't feel safe to me.
She's stressing out about this, listeners.
Yes, I am. I hate it.
Now, here in the U.S., we call them rotaries.
I hear roundabouts, though, from my GPS.
Oh, well, maybe they're going for that international kind of thing.
Maybe, yeah.
Anyway, the infamous ones around these parts are on the way to Cape Cod.
Oh, yes, I hate those ones, too, for different
Especially
reasons.
that first one where, like, traffic is just backed up. I mean, it moves slowly, but my God, Paul and I were sitting in that thing for, like, about a good 15 minutes.
Is that the one where you cross the bridge and there's, like, a Dunkin' Donuts around the area, and if you don't get back, you're on the bridge again?
Yep.
I had to deal with that when I got you your Father's Day present, and I was like, Dad, I love you. I am never buying you this gift card again because I do not want to cross this bridge and go through this rotary.
I really appreciate that.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yep.
we now have one being built here in East Providence, and it is total bullshit. The city took a perfectly straight road,
Yep.
and instead of repaving it, some genius decided, hey, let's put a rotary smack in the middle of it.
Oh, my God.
And the reason I keep hearing is that rotaries are better is because they save on fuel, because it's supposed to keep traffic constantly moving instead of stopping to make a turn or something.
But people are still stopping because you have to yield to the oncoming traffic and make sure no one's zooming like hell before you can merge onto it.
Yeah, and the latest horrific development is it went from being a one-lane rotary to two lanes.
Two-lane rotary.
Even for trying to get into the rotary.
I remember my coworker Leanne and I, Leanne's from Riverside, the two of us were talking. We were talking to our coworker Andy, who lives in the Cranston-Johnston area, about what they did to that rotary, and he goes, oh my God, that sounds like hell. And we're like, it is, Andy, it's hell on earth.
Yeah, everyone's car insurance rates are going to be going way up.
Yep.
And musically, this reminds me of The Police. It just kind of has that feel to it.
The first rotary in Letchworth, Newtown. You are absolutely right. Anyway, final track, Snowman. Those opening notes sound like snow melting. And then we got like a yell, and I thought, oh, maybe they're going like Norse, Viking with this. Then the Jingle Bells kicked in, and I'm saying this right now, not a Christmas song.
Yep.
It's a winter song, not a Christmas song. And they already wrote a Christmas song, as Dad mentioned earlier, so if you want to listen to that song, what was the name of it again?
Thanks for Christmas.
Listen to that, not this. Okay, so this guy's girlfriend is treating him like a snowman. What does that mean? Well, she was building him up and up, put some nice coal button eyes and care for her nose and gave him a scarf, and now she's treating him frostily. Poor guy. The music captures the wind chills with some distortions to sound like a harsh winter breeze. Interesting track to end on, and I'm thinking of that stupid movie that Michael Keaton was in.
Jack Frost?
Yeah, where he's that rock star who gets hit in a snowstorm while going on tour, and then his son plays this harmonica, and his consciousness is trapped inside a snowman, and
Oh
his
my
son...
God, I'm getting stupider by the second listening to this.
And his son has to learn to let him go so his dad can go to heaven or something. I'm going to look up the Rotten Tomato score for this, Dad. You keep talking.
Okay, now Andy's in love, or possibly more likely lust, with the wrong woman. And he even specifies it isn't even winter, but he's freezing. She treats him like a snowman. She treats me far too frosty. And he admits this hanging on has cost me dear. And he knows it's his fault. As he says, it seems you could say I was too soft-hearted. If you made a dunce cap, I'd done it. And then the killer lines.
Mm-hmm.
People will always be tempted to wipe their feet on anything with welcome written on it.
Yep.
And he knows it's him, and he knows that he's just letting this woman use him, even though he's not getting anything out of it except her footy prints all over him.
Like in the Harley and Ivy, the Batman the Animated Series episode where Poison Ivy explains to Harley that she's a doormat, and Harley goes, "I'm not a doormat. Am I?" And Ivy goes, "If you had a middle name, it would be Welcome."
The music does have a winterish feeling to it. It's kind of hard for me to describe beyond the sleigh bells anyway, but I get like how you said the way it starts. It definitely has a feeling of snow to it, falling or melting or what have you.
Update with Jack Frost. The critics gave it 19% on the tomato meter, and the audience score is 40%. And there's two quotes that sum it up really well. One, sentimental schmaltz and uninspired storytelling sink this film. Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly. Jack Frost is so treacly and fake it makes you feel like you're trapped in a winter wonderland paperweight.
Ooh.
Harsh, but truth. All right. Okay, overall, I really loved the first 4 tracks of this album, and then I got the gist of what the rest of it was going to be. Each track was remarkable, and then as the next track kept going on, it was less remarkable. Not in a bad way, but in the, okay, this is the vibe we're going at, and this is where we're staying. I think the music is really good, and they make their points really eloquently. Maybe this album will grow on me as the Cramps' Bad Music for Bad People did. Time will tell. But do I disagree with Rolling Stone? Oh, hell yeah. This band is brilliant, and if you can't tell that, there's no hope for you. So if you like Genesis or experimental rock, I say give this album a try.
Oh, plus XTC has also been looked on as the granddaddies of Britpop.
I don't know if I agree with that statement or not. Because, when I hear Britpop, I think like Kathy Dennis and Spice Girls and stuff like that. Is there a difference?
But they're like the founding fathers. Like as if you listen to the later albums, it becomes a lot more obvious.
Well, if we ever do the later albums, then I guess I'll understand what you're talking about.
Okay, and there we have it. What I consider XTC's greatest album. Everyone says it's Skylarking, but no, it's English Settlement. And I would give it 4.5 out of the 5 stars due to Runaways and Jason the Argonauts being just a tad too long. But other than that, I highly recommend this album.
I think I would give it a 3 having listened to all 15 tracks, not having listened to 10.
Mm-hmm. And what does Rolling Stone know? And I also recommend Drums and Wires and Black Sea wholeheartedly. And if you want to just have a good introduction, I recommend Fossil Fuel, which is a 2-disc career-spanning retrospective of their Virgin Records output.
All right, as always, thank you for listening to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, because the more you interact with the video, the greater chance we have of appearing on the YouTube homepage. If you follow me on social media, I post the episodes there. If you're friends or family of my dad and you want to listen to the episode in particular, shoot him an email and he'll send it to your inbox. As always, thank you for listening to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. We will be back next time with another album to nitpick and gripe about. Dad, anything you want to say before we sign off?
No thugs in our house, are there, Jules?
God, no.
There better not be.
No.
Especially upstairs.
Oh, believe me, if I'd found out about that, I would have kicked him out. Goodbye.